I pushed the Mafia boss's hand off my father's shoulder. He smirked. A kitten with claws. I like that. The last lie I told myself was that I could keep living like this without breaking. My hands smell like bleach and burnt espresso beans, a combination that has become the signature scent of survival. 25 years on this earth, and I have learned that exhaustion is a country with no borders, that you can cross into it without noticing, until you're so deep the way back looks like fiction. The coffee shop opens at 5 in the morning, and I am there at 4:30, unlocking the door with keys that have worn a groove into my palm. I pull shots, steam milk, smile at customers who don't see me because service workers are wallpaper in a city that only notices what glitters. By 2 in the afternoon, I am out, grabbing 3 hours of sleep in my childhood bedroom that still has posters from high school, then pulling on the gray uniform that says I clean hotel rooms for people who tip in loose change and judgment. My father's hospital debt sits on our kitchen table like a third person at every meal. $47,000 for the heart surgery that saved his life and might still kill him with stress. The bills come with the regularity of seasons, each one a fresh reminder that survival has a price, and payment plans have interest rates that laugh at people like us. The bodega has been in our family for 32 years. My father bought it the year I was born with money he saved working construction, putting every piece of himself into the narrow aisles and the green awning that says Alvarez Family Market in letters he painted himself. It smells like cilantro and floor wax and the kind of hope that doesn't announce itself, just keeps showing up every morning to unlock the door. I find the stranger there on a Tuesday that feels like any other Tuesday until it isn't. Father stands behind the counter with his shoulders curved in a way they never used to curve, and the stranger has his hand on my father's shoulder like he owns it. The stranger wears a suit that costs more than 3 months of my rent, charcoal gray with a subtle pinstripe that catches the afternoon light slanting through the window. His shoes are polished to a shine that could double as a mirror. Everything about him says money, power, the kind of casual dominance that comes from never hearing the word no and meaning it. His hand sits heavy on my father's shoulder, fingers spread in a gesture that might look friendly to someone who doesn't know the grammar of threats. 3 missed invoices, the stranger is saying, voice smooth as expensive whiskey. I don't like waiting, Mateo. It makes me look soft. You understand what happens when people think I'm soft. My father's face has gone gray, the color of old newspaper. His mouth opens, but nothing comes out except a sound-like apology trying to find its shape. I see his hand tremble where it rests on the counter, and something in my chest catches fire. I drop my bag by the door and cross the bodega in 4 strides that feel like falling forward into a future I haven't chosen. I step between them, wedging my body into the space between threat and my father, and I lift the stranger's hand off my father's shoulder with both of mine. His skin is warm, surprisingly warm, and I feel the flecks of muscle beneath the expensive fabric of his sleeve as I remove his touch like I'm peeling back something that doesn't belong. Don't touch my dad, I say, and my voice comes out steady even though my pulse is trying to escape through my throat. We'll pay when we can. Get out. The stranger looks at me for the first time and his eyes are dark, the kind of dark that has depth, and I watch something shift in them. Surprise first, then interest. Then something I don't have a name for but recognize in the way animals recognize danger. His mouth does a thing that might become a smile on someone else but on him looks like a weapon being drawn. A kitten with claws, he says, and the amusement in his voice makes my skin feel too tight. I like that. He reaches into his jacket. I tense. My father makes a sound like a prayer being cut short, and pulls out a business card. Heavy stock, cream-colored, embossed lettering that I can feel when he presses it into my hand. Call me when you're serious about that debt, he says, still looking at me like I'm a puzzle he's just decided to solve. I tear the card in half. Then I tear those halves in half. I let the pieces fall between us like snow that has forgotten how to be pretty. We don't need your patience or your card or whatever you think you're offering. We'll handle our business. You handle yours by leaving. He watches the pieces fall and that almost smile deepens. He looks at me like he's memorizing my face, my father, the bodega with its uneven tiles and fluorescent lights that hum with old electricity. Mateo, he says without taking his eyes off me. You have an impressive daughter. Then he leaves. The bell above the door chimes like it doesn't know it just witnessed a grenade with the pin pulled. My father grabs my arm the moment the door closes. "Mia, do you know who that was?" "Someone who needs to learn about personal space," I say. But my hands are shaking now that the adrenaline is looking for an exit. "That was Luca Valenti," my father says, and his voice has a strange quality, like he's speaking the name of a saint or a demon and isn't sure which. You can't, Naya. You don't push a man like that." The name means nothing to me except as another entry in the long list of people we owe money to. Another bill collector with better shoes. I make my father sit down. I pour him water. I watch his hands shake as he drinks, and I think about how much I hate this city, this debt, this life that makes my father afraid in his own store. That night at the hotel, my coworker Ray corners me in the supply room with her phone thrust in my face. "Tell me you didn't," she says, and her voice is half horror, half awe. "Didn't what?" "Tell off Luca Valenti. Please tell me the rumor going around isn't true." I grab a stack of fresh towels and hip-check the door open. "I don't know who that is. Some guy was hassling my dad. I handled it." Ray follows me like she's been tied to my wrist. "Nia Luca Valenti. The Luca Valenti. He's only the most photographed man in this city. Mafia boss whose face is on every charity gala and tabloid cover. Every woman in this city would die for one night with him. One night. And you told him off?" She pulls up photos on her phone. The stranger in a tuxedo at some glittering event. The stranger shaking hands with the mayor. The stranger getting out of a car that costs more than my father's surgery. The stranger with a look on his face that the camera has made hungry and distant and beautiful in the way dangerous things are beautiful when you don't have to stand close to them. "He was threatening my dad," I say, which is the only defense I have. "He's Mafia. Nia, that's what they do. They threaten. And you don't push back. You definitely don't tear up their business. Card while they watch," I finish, loading the housekeeping cart and start down the hallway to the rooms that need my hands to erase the evidence of other people's lives. "Then I guess I did it wrong," I say. And Ray doesn't follow me this time, which is how I know I've done something that can't be undone. By morning, there are flowers. They arrive at the coffee shop in an arrangement so large it has to be carried by 2 delivery people. Roses the color of cream and blush. Peonies heavy enough to bow their stems. Something green and architectural that I don't have a name for. The card says, "For the kitten." The other baristas cluster around them like the flowers have performed a miracle. "Who's Elle?" someone asks, and I say, "Nobody." And I call the delivery company and have them donated to the hospital where my father had his surgery. If Luca Valenti thinks he can buy his way into my good graces with flowers that cost more than my weekly paycheck, he's about to learn what it means to be wrong. The next day, a fruit basket arrives at the bodega. Not a regular fruit basket. This one has mangoes that look hand-selected by someone who understands ripeness, grapes the size of small plums, a pineapple that smells like summer has been bottled. My father opens the card and his face does something complicated. "It's from Valenti," he says. I pack the entire basket back into its decorative wrapping and I walk 4 blocks to the address, listed on the return label. It's a warehouse in Red Hook, gray and industrial with an entrance that doesn't look like an entrance until you notice the camera above the door and the 2 men in dark jackets who materialize the moment I approach. "I'm returning this," I say, holding up the basket. "Tell your boss we don't take charity." One of the men speaks into his wrist. The door opens. A woman with a severe bun and a tablet appears and looks at me like I'm a problem she's been warned about. "Mr. Valenti doesn't accept returns," she says. "Then maybe Mr. Valenti should stop sending things to people who don't want them," I say. And I set the basket down on the concrete and walk away before anyone can argue. 3 days pass in a silence that feels like held breath. Then he shows up at the coffee shop during the morning rush. He orders an espresso, pays with a $100 bill, tells me to keep the change. $500 in change for a $3 drink. I watch him take his espresso to a corner table where he sits with a newspaper he doesn't read, his attention a weight I can feel from across the room. At the end of my shift, I count out $497. I put it in an envelope, and I chase him down the street as he walks to his car. "I'm not for sale," I say, throwing the cash at him. The bills scatter in the wind and he catches some mid-air. the rest tumbling along the sidewalk like the world's saddest parade. He looks at the money in his hands, and then at me. And his smile is the kind that makes you understand why people write warnings about wolves. "I know," he says. "That's why I want you. You don't know anything about me. I know you work 2 jobs. I know you haven't slept more than 4 hours a night in months. I know your hands are chapped from bleach and your feet hurt from standing and you still showed up to yell at a man who could make you disappear. I know you love your father enough to destroy yourself for him. I know you're the first person in 2 years to tell me no and mean it." He steps closer, and the air between us feels like it has texture. I know I can't stop thinking about you. My heart is a fist that doesn't know whether to open or close. "Stay away from my family," I say, and I turn before he can see what his words have done to the architecture of my resolve. That night, the supplier. My father has been dodging for 3 months. Calls to say the debt has been forgiven, paid in full by an anonymous donor. My father cries with relief, and I taste rage at the back of my throat like old copper. I storm Luca's office the next evening after my hotel shift, still wearing my gray uniform with my name embroidered over the pocket like a target. The same warehouse, the same severe woman, but this time she doesn't stop me. She leads me up a flight of industrial stairs to an office that overlooks the warehouse floor. And Luca sits behind a desk that looks like it was made from a single piece of dark wood, his jacket off, his sleeves rolled to expose forearms roped with muscle, and a scar that runs from wrist to elbow like someone once tried to teach him a lesson he refused to learn. "I don't need you playing hero," I say before he can speak. "I don't need you fixing my problems or paying off debts or sending gifts. Stay away from my family." He leans back in his chair, studying me with the same attention he gave me in the bodega, like I'm a book he's reading in a language he's still learning. "What if I can't?" he asks. "That's not my problem. It is if someone else is causing it." He opens a drawer, pulls out a file, slides it across the desk. "Your father isn't the only small business owner in this neighborhood getting squeezed. Someone's skimming protection payments, framing shops to make it look like they're not paying, setting up people like your father to take the fall while they pocket the difference." I don't touch the file. "Why do you care?" "Because the people doing it are blaming me. Because your father is a good man who doesn't deserve to be caught in someone else's war. Because," he stops, jaw flexing. "Because you pushed my hand off his shoulder and I realized I've been letting my hands rest on too many people who didn't ask for the weight." "Don't make me a reason for your redemption," I say. "I didn't ask for that either." "You didn't ask for any of this," he agrees. But here we are. By the end of the week, I learn what it means to be a target. 2 men corner me after my hotel shift in the parking garage, stepping out from between cars like thoughts becoming solid. One is tall with a shaved head and a neck that looks like it's been poured from concrete. The other is shorter, wiry, with eyes that don't blink enough. "Tell your boyfriend to back off our territory," the tall one says. "I don't have a boyfriend," I say, and I'm measuring distances. My car is 15 feet away. The stairwell is 20. The emergency call box is too far to matter. The Mafia boss, who's been sniffing around your family. Tell Valenti we're not afraid of him. Tell him to keep his protection in his own streets. I don't tell him anything, I say. I barely know him. The shorter one laughs like I've told a joke. Then why's he paying off your debts? Why's he sending you flowers? You're either his or you're not. If you're not, then you won't mind if we send him a message through you. The tall one takes a step forward, and I'm about to do something stupid. I'm always about to do something stupid when backed into corners. When footsteps echo through the garage like thunder finding rhythm, 3 men in dark suits appear from the stairwell, moving with the coordinated grace of people who have trained together. They don't run, but they don't need to. Their presence is a closing door. The 2 men who cornered me look at each other and decide survival is worth more than pride. They leave without another word, walking fast enough to be running without the indignity of it. One of the suits approaches me. He's older than the others, maybe 50, with gray at his temples and a face that's seen enough violence to be tired of it. "Ms. Alvarez, Mr. Valenti sent us. We're to escort you home." "I don't need an escort. With respect, you do. And whether you want it or not, you're getting it." They follow me home in a black car that costs more than my annual salary. They wait outside my building until I'm inside. In the morning, They're there again when I leave for the coffee shop. Luca appears at the bodega before noon with a set to his jaw that makes him look like he's ready to go to war with gravity itself. My father is rearranging the shelves. The lock on the stockroom has been acting up, and he's been compensating by reorganizing everything at the front. Luca notices, and without asking, without announcement, he pulls a small toolkit from somewhere and kneels at the stockroom door like it's the most natural thing in the world for a mafia boss to do. "You don't have to do that," my father says. "I know," Luca says, and fixes the lock with hands that know their way around. Mechanical problems. I watch from behind the counter, where I'm supposed to be restocking candy but have instead been frozen by the strangeness of this moment, this man in expensive clothes kneeling on my father's floor, fixing things with competence that doesn't announce itself. When he stands, he wipes his hands on a cloth he produces from his pocket and looks at me with an expression that is half apology, half determination. "We need to talk. We don't need to do anything. 2 men threatened you last night. That's not a negotiation. That's a fact. Until I find out who's behind this, you need protection." "I didn't ask for protection. You pushed my hand off your father," he says, and his voice drops into a register that does something to the air between us. "Now let me keep worse hands off you." My father, who has been listening with the attentiveness of someone watching chess players, speaks for the first time. "Mija, maybe you should listen. Papa, I like him," my father says simply, nodding at Luca. He fixed the lock. He speaks Spanish. He laughs at my jokes. And more importantly, he's trying to keep you safe when you're too stubborn to do it yourself. Luca has the grace not to look smug about this endorsement. He just looks at me with an expression that says he'll wait as long as it takes for me to arrive at the same conclusion everyone else already has. "Fine," I say, because I'm outnumbered, and because somewhere under the rage I'm smart enough to be afraid. "What does protection look like?" 2 bodyguards. Both female, since I assume you'll be more comfortable with that. A driver to and from work. I check in nightly until this is resolved. "I don't need you checking in." "Consider it quality control," he says. And this time he does smile. Just a little. Just enough to remind me that underneath the danger there's a man who finds me interesting in ways I don't know how to handle. The bodyguards arrive the next morning. Soledad and Mira, one tall and silent as a mountain, the other compact and quick-eyed like a bird that's learned to hunt. They introduce themselves with the efficiency of people who have done this before, lay out the protocols, hand me a phone that has 1 number programmed in. "Emergency line," Soledad says. "You use it, we come. No questions. What kind of emergencies are we talking about?" "The kind where you need someone to come," Mira says, which is not an answer but is somehow the only answer that matters. The driver is a man named Tomas who has a scar across his knuckles and a gentleness when he opens car doors that makes me think he has daughters somewhere. He drives me to the coffee shop, waits in the car, drives me to the hotel, waits again, drives me home. He doesn't try to make conversation. He doesn't ask questions. He simply exists as a buffer between me and a world that has suddenly remembered I'm vulnerable. Luca shows up at the bodega every evening for a week. Sometimes he buys something, a bottle of water, a pack of gum, once an entire bag of plantain chips that he eats while talking to my father about baseball. Sometimes he just appears, leans against the counter, asks how my day was with the same attention most people reserve for confessions. My father loves him. It's an uncomfortable truth that I can't ignore. My father, who has been suspicious of every man I've ever brought home, who interrogated my high school boyfriend about his intentions and his GPA, who has made it clear that no one is good enough for his daughter, lights up when Luca walks through the door. They talk in Spanish, rapid fire and comfortable, about things I don't always catch. My father tells stories about when I was little, embarrassing ones involving lost teeth and science fair disasters. Luca listens like these stories are treasures being handed to him. You're bribing him with attention. I accuse one night after Luca has left and my father is still smiling. "He's a good man," my father says. "He's Mafia." "Papa, he's trying," my father corrects. That counts for something. I don't know how to argue with that, so I don't. The charity gala invitation arrives on thick cardstock that smells faintly of expensive cologne. Luca calls me personally, not a text, an actual call where I hear his voice through the phone like he's standing closer than he is. Be my guest, he says without preamble. This weekend. I'll send a dress, a car. No, Nia, I don't belong in your world, Luca. I work 2 jobs. I wear secondhand clothes. I don't know which fork to use at fancy dinners, and I don't care to learn. Find someone else. There's a pause long enough that I think he's hung up. Then, what if I don't want someone else? Then you're going to be disappointed, I say, and I end the call before my resolve can hear whatever he was going to say next. But the gala is at the hotel where I work, which means I don't get to avoid it. I'm scheduled for the event, part of the housekeeping staff assigned to maintain the bathrooms, keep the public spaces pristine, be invisible while visible people have their glittering night. I wear my gray uniform with my name over my pocket, and I watch from the margins as the city's beautiful. People arrive in gowns that cost more than my annual rent. Luca arrives alone, despite the crowd of women who orbit him the moment he enters. I watch from the service corridor as someone who might be an actress touches his arm, as an influencer laughs too loud at something he said, as even Ray, my coworker Ray, who begged to come as someone's +1, positions herself in his line of sight with a dress she definitely couldn't afford. He ignores all of them. His attention sweeps the room like he's looking for something specific. And when his eyes find me half hidden behind a pillar with a trash bag in my hand, his face does something I feel in my stomach. He doesn't approach. He doesn't wave. He just sees me, and keeps seeing me, his gaze returning throughout the night like a compass finding north. During my break, I slip into the service corridor to catch my breath. The sounds of the gala are muffled here, laughter like breaking glass, music that costs $1,000 per hour. I lean against the wall and close my eyes and try to remember why I'm working myself to death for a future that keeps moving backward. Everyone wants you, I hear myself say, and I open my eyes to find Luca standing in the corridor like he's been conjured by my exhaustion. He looks at me for a long time before speaking. I want the woman who threw my money in the street, he says. The one who works herself to the bone for her father. The one who won't let me buy her. He takes a step closer, and the corridor shrinks around us. I want you, Nia, just you, and I don't know what to do with wanting something I can't have. You're Mafia, I whisper, and it's the weakest defense I've ever mounted. I can't. Then don't, he interrupts, but his voice is gentle, like he's offering me an exit. But stop pretending you don't feel this. Stop pretending that when I walk into your father's store, your pulse doesn't jump. Stop pretending you don't look for me even when you don't want to. I want to argue. I want to push him away the way I pushed his hand off my father's shoulder. Instead, I stand there with my trash bag and my gray uniform, and my heart trying to rewrite the rules I've spent 25 years learning. I have to get back to work, I finally say. He nods, steps back, gives me space I didn't ask for but need anyway. When you're ready, he says. I'm not going anywhere. I walk away because staying would mean admitting something I'm not ready to name. But that night I lie awake in my childhood bedroom and replay his words until they've worn grooves into my thoughts. And I hate how much I want to call him, how much I want to say yes to questions he hasn't fully asked. By morning, the world has shifted on its axis in ways I won't understand until it's too late to step back. From the edge, Ray starts showing up to work in clothes that didn't come from the thrift store on 5th Street where we used to spend Sunday afternoons hunting for jeans that fit. She has new shoes, leather, not the kind that pretends to be leather, and her nails are done in that complicated gel situation that requires appointments and tips. When I ask where the money is coming from, she shrugs with a smile that has too many teeth. I've been seeing someone, she says, and the way she says it makes the words sound like they're wrapped in expensive tissue paper. Someone connected. He takes care of things. Connected how? I ask. Because in this city that word has geography and Ray knows it. Connected, she says, lowering her voice like we're sharing a secret. Like you're Luca Valenti connected. Turns out there's a whole world of men like that, and some of them notice girls like us if we're in the right place at the right time. Something cold moves through my chest. Luca isn't my anything. Sure, Ray says, and her smile doesn't reach her eyes. That's why he has bodyguards following you around and shows up at your dad's store like he's shopping for family approval. But okay, whatever you need to tell yourself. She walks away before I can respond, leaving me with the strange sensation that I've just been warned about something I can't name. 3 days later, the police arrive at the bodega with a warrant and the kind of faces that have stopped expecting people to be innocent. They find a shipment in the back room, electronics still in boxes, the kind that come from trucks that don't stop at their intended destinations. The serial numbers match a robbery from 2 weeks ago, a warehouse in Jersey that lost $100,000 in merchandise to men with guns and a van. My father stands behind the counter with his hands spread flat like he's trying to prove they're empty. "I don't know where that came from," he keeps saying. "I don't know. I didn't order it. I've never seen it before." The detective, a woman with gray in her hair and exhaustion in her eyes, looks at him with something that might be pity. "Mr. Alvarez, we're going to need you to come down to the station. Answer some questions." "He didn't do this," I say, stepping between them the way I've learned to step between my father and things that want to hurt him. "Someone planted this. We're being framed. That's what everyone says," the detective responds, not unkindly. "But the evidence says otherwise. We have shipping manifests with your father's signature. We have security footage of someone matching his description accepting the delivery. We have a paper trail." "Then the paper trail is lying," I say, and my voice is rising because fear has volume. "My father has a heart condition. He can barely lift boxes. He didn't steal anything. They take him anyway. They take him in handcuffs because apparently that's protocol. And I watch my father, who has never broken a law in his life, except maybe jaywalking when the light was taking too long, get put into the back of a police car while neighbors watch from doorways with their phones recording everything for social media's appetite. I call Luca from the back of Tomas's car. My hands shaking so hard I nearly drop the phone twice. He answers on the first ring like he's been waiting for a call he knew would come. "They arrested my father," I say, and my voice breaks on the word father. "Planted evidence. Stolen goods. They're saying he's been fencing merchandise. Where are you?" he asks, and there's a quality to his voice that makes me think of doors being locked and weapons being loaded. "On my way to the precinct. Don't say anything to anyone. I'm sending my lawyer. I'll meet you there." He shows up before I've finished filling out paperwork, moving through the police station like he owns it or could if he wanted to. His lawyer is a woman in a suit that costs more than my car, with a face that suggests she's made careers out of problems like this. They disappear into a room with my father, and I sit in a plastic chair designed to make people uncomfortable, and I count the tiles on the ceiling until the numbers stop meaning anything. When they emerge, my father looks smaller somehow, like being accused has taken inches off his frame. The lawyer is talking to the detective, words I can't hear but can read in body language. Disagreement, resistance. The push and pull of people who understand the law has edges you can file into weapons. Luca sits beside me without asking permission. He's being released on bail. My lawyer is handling it. The evidence is circumstantial at best, fabricated at worst. We're going to prove it. How? I ask. Because hope feels dangerous and I've learned not to trust it. By finding who really wants this to happen and making them regret it, he says. And there's something in his voice that makes me remember he's a man. People are afraid of for reasons that have nothing to do with how he looks in a suit. By the time we get my father home, it's past midnight and he looks like he's aged a decade in one day. He sits at the kitchen table in our apartment above the bodega and puts his head in his hands. "I didn't do this, Mia," he says into his palms. "I swear on your mother's memory, I didn't do this." "I know, Papa," I say, and I make him tea he won't drink, and I sit beside him while he tries not to cry. Luca stands in the doorway like he's guarding it, his phone to his ear, speaking in rapid Italian to people whose names I don't know. When he hangs up, he looks at me with an expression that's half determination, half something darker. "This is about you," he says. "Someone is coming after your father to get to me through you. They're escalating. Who? Rival family. Same ones whose men cornered you in the parking garage. They want territory I won't give them. They want a war I won't start. So they're forcing my hand by hurting the people I..." He stops. Recalibrates. "The people I care about." "Then tell them to stop," I say. "Because I'm exhausted and fear is making me stupid. It doesn't work like that. Once you start a play, you have to finish it. And their play involves destroying your father to prove they can. So what do?" He looks at my father, then at me, and I watch him make a decision that I can see costs him something. You move into my compound. Both of you. Safe house with full security. Medical care for your father. 24/7 surveillance. It's the only way I can protect you while I investigate who planted the evidence. I'm not living with you, I say automatically, because some refusals are muscle memory. Then your father goes to jail for crimes he didn't commit, Luca says, and his voice is flat with the kind of certainty that comes from understanding how systems break people. The evidence is too clean. Someone spent money making sure it would stick. My lawyer can delay, but she can't dismiss. Not without proof of forgery. And proof takes time we don't have if you're both exposed. My father lifts his head. Mija, maybe you should listen. Papa, I can't just... I'm tired, my father says, and his voice has the weight of someone who has carried too much for too long. I'm tired and I'm scared and I don't want to go to jail for something I didn't do. If he can keep us safe, let him. I look at Luca, and something in his face tells me he hates this. Hates having to leverage safety like a bargaining chip. Hates that my choices have been narrowed to bad and worse. But he doesn't take it back. He just waits for me to arrive at the conclusion he's already reached. Fine, I say. How long? Until I find who's behind this and make them fix it, he says, which is not an answer with a timeline. We pack by dawn. My father takes his medications, his photo albums, the blanket my mother made before she died. I take my work uniforms, my books, a small box of things that matter only to me. Everything else can wait or rot or disappear. None of it matters if we're not safe enough to come back for it. The compound is in Westchester, far enough from the city that trees outnumber buildings, and the air smells different, cleaner, or maybe just emptier. The estate sits behind gates that open without sound, guarded by men whose eyes sweep constantly, looking for threats in the landscape. The main house is stone and old money, the kind of place that appears in magazines about architecture and legacy. There's a guest house set back from the main building, smaller but still larger than our apartment, with a garden view and a ramp that suggests Luca had it built or modified for accessibility. Your father stays here, Luca says, gesturing to the guest house. Full medical setup. Nurse on call, anything he needs. And me? I ask, though I already know the answer from the way he's standing, angled toward the main house like a compass pointing north. You stay with me, he says. Guest suite. Your own space, but I need you where I can see you. That sounds controlling, I know, he interrupts. But the people trying to hurt your father will escalate to hurting you. And I can't... His jaw works. I won't let that happen. So yes, controlling, but alive. My father is already being led away by a kind-faced woman in scrubs who introduces herself as Elena and promises to make him comfortable. He looks back at me once, his face doing something between apologetic and relieved, and then he's gone into the guest house, and I'm left standing in front of the main house with Luca and a decision I've already made. This doesn't change anything, I say. When this is over, I'm gone. He nods like he expected this, like he's made peace with temporary. I understand. The guest suite is on the second floor, with windows that overlook the gardens, and a bathroom with a tub deep enough to drown in. The bed is larger than any bed I've ever slept in, dressed in linens that probably cost more than my monthly rent. There's a desk, a chair, a bookshelf with actual books that someone has read based on the broken spines. It's nicer than anywhere I've ever lived, and I hate how much I want to stay. Living under the same roof as Luca Valenti is an education in contradictions. In the morning, I wake to the smell of coffee that turns out to be him in the kitchen, making café con leche with the exact ratio of milk to espresso that I prefer. He's dressed in dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled, his hair still damp from the shower, and he moves through the kitchen with the ease of someone who understands that competence in small things translates to trust in larger ones. You didn't have to do this, I say, accepting the cup because refusing would be absurd and the coffee smells perfect. I know, he says. I wanted to. We drink in silence that isn't entirely uncomfortable, and then he's gone. Meetings, phone calls, the business of being who he is, and I'm left with a day that stretches empty in front of me. I visit my father, who looks better already, settled in a chair with Elena checking his blood pressure and telling him stories about her grandchildren. I walk the gardens because I don't know what else to do with my body. I find myself in what must be Luca's study. Dark wood, leather chairs, a desk with papers spread across it like evidence of a mind that works in organized chaos. I shouldn't look. I look anyway. Financial records, security footage stills, reports from people whose job titles I don't fully understand. He's investigating, actually investigating, and the depth of it is written across his desk in highlighter and sticky notes and cross-references that suggest someone who doesn't do anything halfway. Find anything interesting? His voice asks from the doorway, and I jump like I've been caught stealing. I didn't mean to. It's fine, he says, crossing the room to stand beside me. You should know what I'm doing. It's your life we're trying to save. He walks me through it. The forged shipping manifests with signatures that almost match my father's, but are off by degrees only experts would catch. The security footage that shows someone in my father's coat and his approximate build, but whose gait is wrong, whose hands are different. The financial trail that leads back to an account that was opened 3 months ago under a shell company that traces to the rival family's underboss. They've been planning this, he says. Not a crime of opportunity. A strategy. Why? What did we do? You pushed my hand off your father's shoulder, Luca says, looking at me with something in his eyes that makes my pulse forget its rhythm. You made me interested, made me want to protect you. That made you a target because targeting you targets me. So this is your fault, I say, but there's no heat in it, just exhaustion. Yes, he agrees, and I'm going to fix it. The days fold into each other with a strange domesticity that I don't know how to process. We eat breakfast together. He asks about my day like it matters. I find him late at night still working, and I bring him coffee that he drinks with gratitude that feels disproportionate to the gesture. He teaches my father card games that make my father laugh. Real laughter that I haven't heard since before the hospital. He fixes things without being asked. A loose cabinet hinge, a squeaky door, the garden gate that wouldn't latch properly. You don't have to do all this, I tell him one evening when I find him on his knees in the garden fixing the gate's mechanism. I know, he says without looking up, but if I'm going to ask you to live here, everything should work. I watch the way his forearms flex as he works, the way he's patient with inanimate objects that don't deserve his patience, and I feel something in my chest shift without permission. This is dangerous, I think. This wanting, this noticing, this slow erosion of the walls I built to keep men like him on the other side of my life. You're staring, he says, and now he does look up, a small smile playing at his mouth. I'm supervising, I correct, making sure you do it right. Of course, he says, humor in his voice. Wouldn't want to disappoint the supervisor. That night, I lie awake in the guest suite and replay the conversation, the smile, the way his hands moved over the metal with confidence that suggested he could fix anything if given enough time. I think about the way he is with my father. Gentle, respectful, making space for a man whose dignity has been threatened by circumstances outside his control. I think about how he makes coffee without being asked and how he looks at me like I'm someone worth looking at even when I'm wearing 3-day-old clothes and haven't brushed my hair. This doesn't change anything, I tell myself. When this is over, I'm gone. But the lie is getting harder to believe. Ray calls me on a Tuesday with an apology in her voice that sounds rehearsed. I miss you, she says. Can we meet? Coffee? I shouldn't. Every instinct that has kept me alive says I shouldn't. But she's been my friend since high school. Since before the world got complicated, and maybe I'm still naive enough to think friendship survives things like money and jealousy and men who complicate everything they touch. Okay, I say. But not coffee, come here. To the estate, there's a pause. Luca's place? Yes. That's... Okay, sure. Text me the address. She arrives in a car that's too nice, wearing clothes that are too expensive, and when she hugs me, it feels like hugging a stranger wearing my friend's perfume. We sit in the garden and she talks about her new boyfriend, about the places he takes her, about the life she's building with money she didn't have to earn by destroying her hands and her sleep schedule. You could have this too, she says, gesturing at the estate like it's proof of concept. Luca wants you. Everyone can see it. Why are you fighting it? Because it's not real, I say. It's protection. It's debt. It's obligation. It's not love, she supplies, and something in her smile has an edge. You're so busy being noble you can't see what's right in front of you. He's in love with you, Naya, and you're too stubborn to let yourself love him back. The words hit differently than I expect. Not because they're wrong, but because they might be right. And I don't know what to do with right when it comes wrapped in danger and a life I never wanted. It's complicated, I finally say. It's always complicated, Ray says. That's not an excuse. She leaves an hour later and I watch her car disappear down the driveway, with a strange feeling in my stomach. Like I've just been warned and didn't understand the language. By the end of the week, the other shoe drops with the weight of something that's been falling for a while. The police come back, but this time they come for me. Detective Martinez, the same woman who arrested my father, stands in the foyer of Luca's estate with a warrant and a face that suggests she's not happy about what she has to do. Nia Alvarez, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, money laundering, and accessory to theft. The words don't make sense. They're in English, but arranged in an order that might as well be a foreign language. What? Evidence shows you accepted a $50,000 bribe from a rival organization, she says, and she's reading from something, her voice professional and distant. Bank records indicate deposits made over the past 3 months to an account in your name. Security footage shows you accepting packages. We have witness testimony placing you at meetings with known criminals. That's not true. None of that is true. I didn't— You have the right to remain silent, she begins, and the Miranda rights sound like a prayer said backward. Luca appears from somewhere, his face carved from stone. She's not going anywhere without my lawyer. Mr. Valenti, this is a lawful arrest. We have probable cause and a warrant. You can have your lawyer meet her at the station, but she's coming with us now. They put handcuffs on my wrists, cold metal that clicks shut with finality, and they walk me out to a car while Luca makes phone calls with a voice that could cut glass. My father appears on the steps of the guest house, Elena holding his arm, his face gray with fresh panic. My daughter didn't do this, he shouts. She's not capable of this. But capability doesn't matter when the evidence says otherwise. At the station, they show me bank statements with my name, my social security number, deposits that add up to $50,000 spread over 12 weeks. They show me security footage, grainy but clear enough, of someone who looks like me accepting a package from a man I've never seen before. They show me a witness statement from Ray, signed and notarized, saying I bragged about playing both sides, and getting paid to set up my own father for a cut of the insurance payout. That's not me, I say, but my voice sounds weak even to my own ears. That footage, it's not me. Look closer. The height is wrong. Ms. Alvarez, the evidence is substantial. A jury will find it compelling. If you cooperate, the DA might be willing to negotiate. I have nothing to negotiate, I say, and my voice breaks. I didn't do this. I would never. My father, I love my father. I work 2 jobs to pay his medical bills. Why would I frame him? Money, Martinez says simply. According to our investigation, you were approached by the Andretti family 3 months ago. They offered to pay your father's hospital debt if you helped them frame him for fencing stolen goods, then split the insurance payout when the bodega went under. $50,000 up front, another $100,000 on completion. No. Someone is lying. Someone made this up. Multiple someones? She asks. Bank records don't lie, Ms. Alvarez. Forensic accountants have verified the deposits. Security footage doesn't lie. Digital analysts have confirmed it hasn't been tampered with. Your best friend doesn't lie under oath. She corroborated everything. My best friend, Ray, who suddenly had money, who asked me to meet her, who looked at me in the garden with a smile that had edges. She set me up, I whisper. She's lying. They paid her to lie. That's a serious accusation. So is framing someone for crimes they didn't commit, I say, and anger is burning through the fear now. I didn't do this. I don't have $50,000. I don't know anyone in the Andretti family. I've never taken a bribe in my life. Someone made this evidence. Someone is lying, and I swear on my mother's grave I'm going to prove it. They put me in a holding cell anyway. Concrete and bars and the smell of industrial cleaner trying to mask despair. I sit on a bench that's bolted to the wall, and I put my head in my hands and I try not to cry because crying feels like admitting defeat. My father hospitalized again. That's what Elena tells me when she brings clean clothes my father insisted I have. Heart attack. Minor, thank God, but still. brought on by stress when he watched police take me away in handcuffs. He's asking for you, Elena says through the bars. Keeps saying it's his fault, that if he'd never borrowed money, none of this would have happened. Tell him... My voice cracks. Tell him I love him. Tell him I'm going to fix this. Tell him... I can't finish because my throat has closed around words too big to fit through. Luca comes at midnight when visiting hours are over, but rules bend for men like him. He bribes or threatens his way into the cell block, I don't ask which, and he kneels outside the bars like he's the one asking for forgiveness. I didn't do this, I say before he can speak. I swear on my father's life, on his actual life, on his heart that's failing because of this. I didn't do this. I know the evidence looks... I know it looks like I'm guilty, but I'm not. I'm not, Luca. Please believe me. He reaches through the bars and takes my hands. His skin is warm and solid and real, and I hold on to him like he's the only thing keeping me tethered to a version of reality where I'm not a criminal. I know, he says, and his voice is rough with something I can't name. I know your heart, Nia. You pushed my hand off your father because you're a fighter. You threw my money in the street because you have integrity. You work yourself to bone because you love so fiercely it hurts to watch. Evidence can be fabricated. People can lie, but I know who you are. I know you couldn't do this. Something in my chest breaks open. Some dam I've been holding since I was old enough to understand that people leave, and love fails, and trusting the wrong person can destroy you. Everyone else thinks I'm guilty, I whisper. Everyone else doesn't matter, he says. I know you're not. And I'm going to prove it. How? By doing what I should have done from the beginning. Stop playing by rules that don't apply to people trying to destroy us. Hire the best forensic accountants. Get hackers who can trace digital fingerprints. Find out how deep Ray's betrayal goes and who paid for it. Pull every string I have until something unravels. Why? I ask. Because I need to hear him say it. Why do you believe me when the evidence says you shouldn't? He moves closer to the bars. Close enough that I can see the dark of his eyes. The set of his jaw. The way he's looking at me like I'm something precious he's afraid to break with too much truth. Because I'm in love with you, he says. Not the fantasy. Not the idea, you. The woman who fights for her father. The woman who refuses to be bought. The woman who looks at me like I'm dangerous and wants me anyway even though she won't admit it yet. I know you, Nia. And I love what I know. The words settle over me like something physical. Something I can feel in my bones and my blood and the spaces between my ribs where I've been holding my breath for weeks. I'm in a jail cell. This is the worst possible time too. I know, he says. But I'm not waiting for a better time. Because better times don't exist for people like us. We take the moments we get, and we hold on to them even when they have bars between them. He gets me released on his recognizance by morning, putting up his estate as collateral, signing papers that make him responsible for me showing up to court. His lawyer, the severe woman whose name I learn is Catherine, explains that I'm to stay at the compound, that I'm not to leave without permission, that I'm essentially under house arrest, but at least it's a house with coffee and gardens and my father nearby. We're going to fight this, Catherine says, and we're going to win. But it's going to take time. Time is what we spend. Days in Luca's study, going through evidence with forensic accountants who find discrepancies in the bank records, timestamps that don't match, deposits made from IP addresses that trace to locations I've never been, security footage that, when examined by digital analysts, shows signs of deepfake technology, the kind that costs money and expertise and intent. And then there's Ray. Luca's people find the wire. The transfers, $100,000 paid to her over the course of 2 months, from a shell company owned by the Andretti family's underboss. They find her real phone records, the ones she thought were hidden, showing calls to numbers belonging to known criminals. They find a real bank account, the offshore one, where she's been moving money she planned to disappear with. She sold us out, I say, looking at the evidence spread across Luca's desk. My best friend sold me out for money. She sold you out because I wanted you, Luca corrects quietly. The Andrettis promised her money, yes, but they also promised her an introduction to me if she helped them destroy you. She wanted what you had, what she thought you had. She was jealous, I say, and it's not a question. Jealousy can make people cruel, he says, especially when combined with greed. That night, I find him in the kitchen at 2 a.m, making coffee neither of us needs but both of us want. We've been investigating together for days now, sitting side by side going through documents until the words blur, comparing notes in a shorthand we've developed without meaning to. We've become a team through necessity, but somewhere along the way it became something else. Partnership, maybe, or the beginning of something that doesn't have a name yet. He pours 2 cups, and we stand at the counter in the dark kitchen lit only by the stove light, and the silence between us feels full of words we haven't said. "I'm falling in love with you," he says into that silence, setting down his cup like he needs his hands free for this confession. Not the fantasy. The reality, your stubbornness, your fire. How you love your father with everything you have. How you threw money in my face, and I knew I'd never meet anyone like you again. You made me want to be better. Not for show. For real. Because you deserve better. I set down my own cup because my hands are shaking. "You're Mafia, Luca. Dangerous. This world you live in." "Then tell me you don't feel this," he interrupts. And he takes a step closer. Close enough that I can feel the heat coming off his body. Close enough that the air between us has texture. "Look me in the eye and tell me you don't lie awake thinking about me. Tell me you don't watch me when you think I'm not looking. Tell me you don't want this as much as I do." I can't. I can't tell him that because it would be a lie. And I've never been good at lying, especially not to myself. "I can't lie," I whisper. "I love you. I'm terrified, but I love you." He moves like something in him has been released, closing the distance between us with one step, and then his mouth is on mine. The kiss isn't gentle. It's weeks of restraint breaking. Weeks of wanting compressed into the way his hands cut my face like I'm something that might disappear if he doesn't hold on. I kiss him back with everything I've been, holding in, fear and want and anger and relief all twisted, together into something that tastes like him, and feels like falling and flying at the same time. When we break apart, we're both breathing like we've run somewhere far. His forehead rests against mine, and his hands are still on my face, thumbs tracing my cheekbones like he's memorizing the geography of me. "I want you," he says, voice rough, "but not like this. Not when you're scared and the world is falling apart. When this is over. When you choose me, because you want to, not because I'm the only safe place you have." "What if I'm choosing you now?" I ask. "What if I want this even though everything is broken? Especially because everything is broken?" His eyes search mine in the dim light. "Are you sure?" And standing there in his kitchen at 2 a.m. with my world on fire and my father in a guest house recovering from a heart attack and my best friend having betrayed me for money and a chance with the man whose hands are on my face. I'm sure, I say. "I choose this. I choose you." He takes my hand and leads me upstairs to his bedroom, and every step feels like a choice I'm making with my whole body. His room is simpler than I expected. Dark walls, a bed with white sheets, windows that overlook the garden where moonlight makes the trees look like they're holding their breath. He closes the door behind us and the sound is soft, final, a punctuation mark on everything that came before. "Are you sure?" he asks again, and his hands are on my face, tilting my head so he can see my eyes. "We can wait. You've been through so much. The arrest, your father, the stress. I don't want you to do this because you think you owe me or because—" I kiss him to stop the words. "I'm sure," I say against his mouth. "I choose this. I choose you. Not because I owe you, because I want you. Because when everything was falling apart, you believed me. Because you looked at evidence that said I was guilty, and you chose to see who I really am." Something in his face shifts, tension releasing into something softer and more dangerous. He kisses me slowly this time, with intention, his hand sliding from my face to my neck to my shoulders. His fingers find the top button of my shirt, one of his shirts that I borrowed because I've been living here long enough that the line between his clothes and mine has blurred, and he pauses. "Tell me if you want to stop," he says. "Anytime. I mean it. I won't want to stop," I whisper. But the care in his voice does something to my chest, makes the wanting sharper and sweeter at the same time. He unbuttons slowly, each one a small ceremony, his eyes watching mine like he's reading a language written on my face. When my shirt falls open, he traces the line of my collarbone with fingers that are surprisingly gentle for hands that have held weapons. "You're beautiful," he says. "Been wanting to touch you since you pushed my hand off your father's shoulder. Since you threw my money in the street. since you looked at me like I was dangerous and stood your ground anyway. I pull his shirt up and over his head, mapping the terrain of him, the muscle earned through discipline, not vanity, the scars that tell stories he hasn't shared yet, the way his breath catches when my hands trace his ribs. Who hurt you? I ask, touching an old scar that runs along his side. People who don't matter anymore, he says. You're healing things they broke, making me believe I can be more than what I was. He lifts me, and instinct takes over, my hands finding his shoulders, my heart racing with a rhythm that feels both new and familiar. It's as if our souls already know this language, written somewhere between longing and trust. He guides me to the bed with a tenderness that feels almost sacred, his hand resting gently over my stomach as though anchoring me to this moment. I want to know all of you, he says, fingers tracing the calluses on my palms from years of coffee shop work and cleaning supplies. He kisses each one like they're medals I've earned. He finds a faded scar on my shoulder from when I was 12 and fell off my bike trying to impress a boy who never noticed. Tell me, he says, and I do, and he kisses that too, like he's collecting my history through touch. I help him with his jacket with hands that are steadier than I feel, helping him out of layers that have kept us apart. The connection building between us makes me bold. I reach for his hand and he makes a sound that's half prayer, half surrender, leaning closer like he's been waiting for permission to want this as much as I do. Naya, he says, my name a warning and a plea. I want all of you too, I say, and I mean it. The air shifts between us as we move closer, until there's nothing separating our hearts, and the world outside this room feels like fiction. He reaches into the nightstand for protection, handling it with quiet care that tells me he values me, then returns his full attention to me like I'm the only thing that matters. You're sure? He asks one more time, his eyes searching mine with an intensity that steals my breath. I'm yours, I whisper. Always yours. Show me what that means. He moves with careful intention, watching my face, asking silent questions I answer with gentle touches. It's been so long, and there's a moment where I think the intensity of emotion might be too much, but then my heart remembers how to trust this, how to let myself be vulnerable with someone who's earned it. When we're as emotionally connected as two people can be, his forehead drops to mine, his breath carrying the weight of restraint and devotion. He starts. But words fail him, so he kisses me instead, deep and thorough, until I'm responding, asking for more without language. We exist together in this moment, finding a rhythm that feels like conversation, like we're speaking in a language only our hearts understand. His hand finds mine, fingers lacing, holding me steady. You're mine, he says, voice rough with emotion. Tell me you're mine. I'm yours, I whisper. Because it's true. Because somewhere between the bodega and the police station and this moment, I became his in ways I didn't know were possible. Not letting you go. Ever. The emotion builds like something with architecture, each moment adding to the structure until I'm overwhelmed, chasing something just out of reach. Something shifts and suddenly it's there, bright and sharp and consuming, and I'm whispering his name as overwhelming feelings wash over me, making me forget everything but this. He experiences the same moments later, burying his face in my neck, saying my name like it's the only word he knows. For a moment we're both still, held in this sacred space, learning how to exist in this new understanding of us. He pulls back to look at me and there are tears on my face, not from pain, but from the sheer overwhelming relief of being seen and wanted and held by someone who chose to believe me when everyone else saw evidence and stopped looking. Hey, he says softly, wiping the tears with his thumb. Are you okay? Did I hurt you? No, I say, laughing through the tears. No, this is the first time in weeks I've felt safe. Really safe with you, like this. He gathers me closer, pulling blankets around us, creating a sanctuary where nothing exists but his warmth and his steady heartbeat beneath my cheek. You're always safe with me, he murmurs into my hair. Always, Naya, I promise you that. And lying there in his arms, feeling the solid proof of his care surrounding me, I finally believe him. Whatever happens, he says into my hair, I show up. For you, for your father, for this thing we're building, because you're everything. Nia, everything. I press my face harder into his chest and breathe him, Inner cedar and gun oil and something uniquely him, and I let myself believe in futures that don't end in handcuffs and heartbreak. Morning comes too soon, and with it, the weight of everything we still have to fix. But we wake tangled together, and he makes coffee while I shower. And when I come downstairs, he hands me a mug and kisses my temple like we've been doing this for years instead of hours. Today, he says, we finish this. His people have been working through the night. The forensic accountant found the digital fingerprints. The deposits to my fake account were made from an IP address that traces to a location 3 blocks from where Ray's new boyfriend lives. The security footage analyst found the markers of deepfake technology, the small glitches in the pixels that prove the woman in the video isn't me, just a simulation wearing my face. The investigator tracking Ray found her packing suitcases in a hotel room she paid for with cash from the offshore account. She's running, Luca's head of security reports, and there's satisfaction in his voice. Booked a flight to the Caymans under a fake name. Leaves tonight. Pick her up, Luca says. Bring her here. She's going to tell us everything on camera, or I'm handing the evidence to the police and letting them file charges that make her initial payment look like pocket change. They bring her at noon, escorted by 2 men who don't touch her, but make it clear she's not leaving until this is finished. She looks different, harder somehow. The softness I associated with friendship burned away to reveal something calculating underneath. She sees me standing beside Luca, and her mouth twists into something that might be a smile or might be a snarl. The loyal girlfriend, she says. Did he tell you he only wanted you because you were different? Because you played hard to get? Men like him get bored, Nia. When the shine wears off, you'll just be another poor girl who thought she could keep a rich man interested. Why? I ask, because I need to understand how friendship becomes betrayal. Was it just the money, or was it me? She laughs, sharp and bitter. You have no idea what it's like, do you? Watching you throw away what every woman in this city wants. He was obsessed with you. Obsessed. And you acted like it was a burden. Like his attention was something to suffer through instead of the blessing it is. The Andrettis offered me money, yes. But they also offered me a chance. They said if I helped them destroy you, they'd introduce me to him. Make sure I was in the right place at the right time to be the shoulder he cried on when you were gone. So you framed my father, I say, voice flat. You helped them plant evidence that could have sent him to prison. You testified under oath that I confessed to crimes I didn't commit. You destroyed my life for a chance with a man who was never going to want you. He would have, she insists, if you weren't in the way. Luca steps forward, and his voice is cold enough to make the room's temperature drop. I want you to understand something very clearly. I never wanted you. I never noticed you. I never will, because you're the kind of person who sells out their best friend for money in a fantasy, and women like that make me sick. Ray flinches like he's slapped her. Now, Luca continues, you're going to give a statement on camera confessing everything. Who paid you? How much? What they told you to do? Every lie you told under oath. You're going to provide documentation of the wire transfers, the offshore accounts, the communications with the Andretti family. And you're going to do it voluntarily, with our lawyer present, because if you don't, I'm turning over what we already have to the DA, and you'll be charged with fraud, conspiracy, perjury, and accessory to attempted murder since your lies put Naya in danger. Attempted murder? Ray says, and fear flickers across her face. No one tried to kill anyone. The people threatening Nia in parking garages were your Andretti friends, Luca says. That's conspiracy to commit violence. That's attempted kidnapping. That's enough to put you away for years, unless you cooperate. Then maybe the DA decides you're a useful witness instead of a defendant. She cooperates. The video statement takes 2 hours. Catherine asking questions in her precise legal voice, while Ray confesses to everything. The money, the lies, the coordination with the Andretti underboss whose name is Vince Andretti, and who orchestrated the frame-up from beginning to end. She provides passwords to the offshore account, shows text messages she was stupid enough not to delete, admits she lied under oath because Vince promised her $50,000 immediately, and the rest after Luca came to her for comfort. When it's done, Luca's people escort her to the police station where she'll be arrested on charges that might be reduced if her cooperation proves valuable. I watch her leave and feel nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, just the hollow space where a friendship used to be. I'm sorry, Luca says, his hand on my shoulder. I know she was important to you. She was, I agree. But apparently I never really knew her. With Ray's confession in hand, Catherine files emergency motions to dismiss the charges against me. The DA, faced with video evidence of perjury and fraud, has no choice but to drop the case. The bank records are proven fake. The security footage is proven manipulated. The witness is proven a liar. By evening, I receive official notification that all charges have been dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. My father cries when I tell him. Real tears that he doesn't try to hide, sitting in the guest house with Elena fussing over his blood pressure and his hands gripping mine like I might disappear if he lets go. I knew, he says. I knew you didn't do it, Mija. But I was so afraid they wouldn't see what I see, that they'd take you away and I'd lose you the way I lost your mother. You're not losing me, Papa, I say. I'm right here. We're both right here. And we're safe. But Luca isn't finished yet. He arranges a meeting with the Andretti family head. Not Vince, the underboss, but his father Anthony, who leads the family with an old-school sensibility about honor and lines that shouldn't be crossed. They meet in a warehouse that's neutral territory, Luca bringing his best people, Anthony bringing his, and me standing beside Luca because I've earned the right to see this through. Anthony Andretti is 70 with white hair and eyes that have seen too much to be shocked by anything. He listens while Catherine presents the evidence, Ray's confession, the wire transfers from Vince's accounts, the digital trail proving Vince orchestrated the frame-up. He listens to the recording of Vince laughing about how the girl will take the fall and Moretti will learn his place. When the evidence is finished, Anthony is quiet for a long time. Then he looks at his son, Vince, who stands beside him with a confidence that's starting to crack, and his face hardens into something terrible. You framed an innocent man, Anthony says to Vince. You suborned perjury. You conspired to threaten a woman under Moretti's protection, and you did it to cover your own theft. You've been skimming protection money for months, pocketing the difference, framing small businesses when they complained about bills they'd already paid. Father, I'm not finished, Anthony says, voice like a door slamming shut. You've disgraced this family. You've violated every code we live by. You've made us look weak and dishonorable. And worse, you did it out of greed and vanity. He turns to Luca. My son will face consequences within our family. The woman, Ray, you can do with as you please legally. She betrayed her friend for our money, which makes her our responsibility. The charges against the girl and her father will be cleared publicly with our cooperation. Any debts they owe to anyone connected to us are forgiven. And you and I will sign a new territorial agreement that reflects my wish to maintain peace. And him? Luca asks, nodding at Vince. He's no longer your problem, Anthony says. And there's finality in his voice that suggests Vince's future doesn't include leadership or freedom or possibly a long life. Family handles its own. They shake hands, the old rituals of men who live in a world where handshakes mean more than contracts. And it's done. The war that was building dissolves before it can start. The frame-up is exposed. The debts are forgiven. We drive back to the estate in silence, Luca's hand covering mine on the seat between us. When we arrive, my father is waiting on the steps, Elena beside him. And he opens his arms and I walk into them and let myself be held the way I was held when I was small and the world was simpler. It's over, I tell him. Really over. The charges are dropped. The debts are forgiven. We're safe. Because of him, my father says, looking past me to where Luca stands giving us space. He saved us both, Mija. I know, I say. That night, Luca and I return to his bedroom without discussing it, our bodies finding each other in the dark, with the urgency of people who know how close they came to losing this. We make love slowly this time, learning each other, and when I fall asleep in his arms, I dream of futures instead of nightmares. Morning brings nausea that I blame on stress until it happens 3 mornings in a row. Elena notices, nurses always notice, and she hands me a small box with a pregnancy test and a knowing smile. Maybe stress, she says. Maybe something else. Better to know. I take the test in the bathroom of the guest suite, sitting on the closed toilet lid with my hands shaking and my heart doing complicated things in my chest. The instructions say wait 3 minutes. I wait 5 because I'm afraid of what the result might be regardless of what it shows. 2 lines. Pregnant. I sit there with the test in my hands and I run the math. We've been careful every time, but careful isn't the same as infallible, and the timing suggests conception happened that first night, when the world was falling apart and we chose each other anyway. I think about Luca, about the compound, about my father recovering in the guest house, about a life I didn't plan but might want anyway. I find Luca in his study reviewing the final paperwork for his legitimate business, ventures, the pivot away from anything illegal that he's been planning, since the Andretti situation resolved. He looks up when I enter and his face does something soft when he sees me. "Hey," he says. "You okay?" "You look—" "I'm pregnant," I say, because there's no good way to ease into it. We've been careful but not careful enough, or maybe just unlucky, or— I stop because the words are coming out wrong. I'm pregnant, and I don't know what that means for us, or for this, or for anything, but I needed you to know. He stands so fast, his chair rolls backward. He crosses the room in 3 strides, and then he's kneeling beside where I'm standing, frozen in the doorway, his hands on my waist, his face tilted up to mine. "A baby," he says, and his voice breaks on the word. "Our baby?" "Yes," I whisper. I'm terrified. Your world, the danger, everything that just happened. I don't know if I can bring a child into this. "Then we change the world," he says fiercely. "I'm done with the dirty side, Nia. I've been divesting for weeks, getting out of everything illegal, going fully legitimate. Real estate, security firms, businesses that won't put our family in danger. I was doing it for you. Now I'm doing it for all 3 of us." "It's not that simple," I say. "You can't just walk away from—" "I already have," he interrupts. "The Andretti situation was my last operation. Everything else is already transferred or dissolved. I'm out. For you. For our child. Because you made me want to be the kind of man who deserves this. Who deserves— you." He stands and pulls me into his arms and I let myself be held while my mind tries to catch up with a future that suddenly accelerated. "I'm scared," I admit into his chest. "Me too," he says. "But we'll figure it out together. Because that's what we do now. We're a team." I pull back to look at his face, searching for doubt or resentment or fear. I find only determination and something that looks like joy trying to teach itself how to exist. "You want this?" I ask. "Really?" "I want everything with you," he says. "The baby, the future, the boring domestic moments, and the hard ones. All of it, if you'll have me." "Are you proposing?" I ask, almost laughing through the tears that have started again. "Not yet," he says, smiling. "When I propose, it'll be better than this. You crying in my study because you're pregnant and terrified. I'll do it right, somewhere that matters, with words that are worthy of what you mean to me." "I'll hold you to that," I say. We tell my father that evening. The 3 of us sitting in the guest house living room with Elena hovering nearby, pretending not to eavesdrop. I place a small box on the table. It's wrapped in tissue paper and contains a tiny apron I had overnighted, embroidered with abuelo in script that looks like my mother's handwriting. My father opens it slowly, his hands trembling. He reads the embroidery once, twice, 3 times, his face doing something complicated. Then he looks at me with tears streaming down his cheeks. "My girls," he says, voice breaking. "Both of you. You're giving me everything I thought I'd lost when your mother died. A grandchild, a reason to keep fighting." He hugs me with a strength I didn't know he still had, and then he pulls Luca into the embrace too, and the 3 of us stand there in the guest house, holding on to each other like we're forming something new. Family made by choice instead of blood. The weeks that follow feel like learning a new language. Luca takes me to doctor's appointments and holds my hand through the ultrasound, where we see a small blur that will become our child. My father gets stronger, his heart stabilized by medication and relief, and the prospect of being a grandfather. The bodega stays closed while we decide what to do with it. Sell it, renovate it, turn it into something different that doesn't carry the weight of what happened there. Luca proposes on a Sunday morning in the garden, where I've spent months walking and thinking. He leads me to a bench under an oak tree, and he kneels the way he knelt in the police station when he told me he believed me, and he pulls out a ring that's simple and beautiful and exactly right. "I love you," he says. "Not because you saved me from becoming the worst version of myself. Not because you're carrying our child, but because you're you. Stubborn and fierce and brave enough to push my hand off your father's shoulder when everyone else would have looked away. Because you chose me when you had every reason not to. Because you threw my money in the street and made me earn your trust instead of buying it. Marry me. Build this life with me. Let me spend the rest of my days proving I'm worthy of what you've given me. Yes, I say. Because there's no other answer I want to give. Yes. The wedding is small. My father, Elena, Soledad, and Mira. Tomas, who drove me to safety more times than I can count. Catherine, who saved my freedom. And a handful of Luca's people who have become my people through proximity and shared danger. We marry in the garden under the oak tree, and when Luca kisses me, he tastes like coffee, and promises and futures that don't require perfect pasts. 6 months later, our daughter arrives on a Tuesday morning with my father's eyes and Luca's stubborn chin. We name her Sophia after my mother, and when my father holds her for the first time, he cries the way he cried when the charges were dropped. Relief and joy mixing into something that looks like grace. We move into a renovated apartment above the bodega, which we've transformed into a community market that sells goods from local vendors at prices people can afford. Luca hired a manager and a full staff so I don't have to work myself to exhaustion anymore. And my father visits daily to tell stories and teach Sophia Spanish words she's too young to understand, but will carry in her bones anyway. On a Sunday afternoon when Sophia is sleeping, and my father is watching soccer with the volume too loud and Luca is making dinner in our small kitchen, I stand at the window overlooking the street where I grew up. I think about the woman I was a year ago, exhausted, angry, planning vengeance against a man I thought destroyed my life. I think about how wrong I was and how right everything turned out anyway, not because I was rescued, but because I let myself be seen. Luca comes up behind me, his arms circling my waist, his chin resting on my shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" he asks. "How I pushed your hand off my father's shoulder and you fell in love with me," I say. "I did," he agrees. "You showed me what I was capable of being if I tried. What we were both capable of if we chose each other." I lean back into him and watch the street where people pass by living their ordinary lives, unaware that they're walking past a bodega where something impossible happened, where a poor girl pushed a rich man and instead of punishment found love, where evidence lied but truth won anyway, where betrayal made space for family forged in fire. "Thank you," I say, turning in his arms to face him, "for believing me when everyone else saw evidence, for fighting for us, for becoming the man who deserved the second chance I gave you." "Thank you," he says, kissing my forehead, "for being brave enough to push back, for seeing past what I was to what I could be, for choosing me when the whole world wanted me, but you were the only one who mattered." From the living room, Sophia wakes with a cry that says she's hungry and unimpressed with nap time. My father calls for Luca to come see a goal he can rewind and watch again. The rice cooker beeps to signal dinner is ready. The ordinary chaos of our extraordinary life swirls around us, and I let it carry me forward into a future I built by refusing to be anything less than exactly who I am. The kitten with claws who tamed the Mafia boss everyone wanted, and the man who proved himself worthy of being chosen.